For the Bears, trade Robert Quinn. Sports Talk Chicago here with Jon Zaghloul. In this video, we're going to address breaking news. That is a report that suggests the Bears will trade Robert Quinn before the NFL trade deadline. New to the channel, subscribe, set up notifications so you don't miss a thing. We talk Chicago Bears daily. We also have former Bears players and other analysts who join the channel weekly, so make sure you tune in for that. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Jon Z Sports, Facebook Jon Zaghloul. Want to watch more of this show? Head on over to sportstalkchicago.com. I want to start today with this. I'm not surprised anymore. It's not a bad thing. I mean, Ryan Poles already set the precedent when he came in. Very few players from the old regime would stay, and the emphasis would be on 2023, bringing up cap space, rebuilding now, and getting rid of bloated contracts that Brian Pace paid out. Saw the Bears part ways, surprisingly at least a little bit, with Khalil Mack. No more Keem Hicks. A lot of veterans were gone, big contracts gone, even if it meant the Bears would pay money today to not have to pay money tomorrow. That's why the Bears are still on tap for a $20+ million salary for Khalil Mack, even though he hasn't played it down this year with Chicago. By the way, he's killing it with the Chargers. I don't know if you've seen. I'm not opposed to any of those moves, really. I wish, in some cases, like the Mack trade, the Bears would have gotten more back, but at the end of the day, I get the idea and the process behind what Brian Poles is trying to do. I understand it. Get rid of old money, create new money in the future, get rid of all these old players and bloated contracts, and have the team have your name on it. That's the whole thing here. Ryan Poles wants to inject his name out of the Bears. He wants his roster, his players, his salary, the money he's going to be paying out to all these guys. He wants it all to be in his control, and I have no issues nor problem with it. It's only common sense. You take over a company that's obviously failing, you're going to want to do things to clean things up, then inject your name onto the brand. It's common sense. So this report about Robert Quinn is not a surprise, and in my opinion, may truly happen before the NFL trade deadline. Here's the quote from Jason La Canfora. I'll tell you about him in a second, but he said, quote, "The Chicago Bears are a mess again. They're in a rebuild, even if they don't want to admit it. Although pawning off Khalil Mack should have been evidence enough, now after the Bears told teams through the offseason that they didn't want to part with Robert Quinn, their other veteran pass rusher, multiple NFL executives, have told me that Robert Quinn is indeed being shopped around with the trade deadline a few weeks away. The Bears, quote, want to move him, but they're going to have to eat some of that contract to do it," one GM said. First of all, Jason La Canfora is technically an NFL insider, but he's gotten a lot of predictions and reports wrong over the past couple of years. Actually, CBS demoted him from being their lead NFL insider because he was wrong so many times. That's a fact. You can look it up. So everything he says, you have to take with somewhat of a grain of salt. He's not Schefter, he's not Ian Rappaport, he's Jason La Canfora. That said, this entire report makes sense. Now, I looked up what the Bears may have to pay, and this came up from Brad Spielberger of Pro Football Focus. Chicago's going to have to eat some salary to get this done. Robert Quinn will be owed about $7.1 million at the deadline, agreeing to convert $5+ million of that into a bonus to boost the draft compensation return. And that would make some sense. So Quinn will be owed about $7 million immediately upon trading. And the Bears may have to convert another $5 million of that into a draft-type bonus to make it more exciting for other teams to want him, essentially. As La Canfora correctly said, the Bears have set the precedent. Ryan Poles has set the precedent. That's why I said I'm not surprised nor even upset by this report. Really, I'm actually pretty happy. Robert Quinn has not produced this year, and it's kind of surprising. He's only a year removed from 18.5 sacks. He's only a year removed from breaking the Bears' record for sacks in one season. Richard Dent came down because of Robert Quinn. And yet now, in 6 games, only 1 sack. Only 7 tackles 7 tackles and 1 sack in 6 games, coming off a year where he had 49 tackles and 18.5 sacks. He will never reach those numbers this year already. It's already been proven. There is no way he'd have to go on a monstrous run over the last 10, 11 games to get there. Not going to happen. So at this point, what's the point in keeping Quinn? And I really don't blame Poles for this. I don't blame anybody for this. I think everyone thought Robert Quinn would replicate what he did last year. That's why he was the one veteran that didn't go anywhere. And the Bears needed some sort of veteran presence on that defense, but think about it. Khalil Mack was washed. I wanted Mack to stay, or I wanted the Bears to get more for him, but Khalil Mack was washed. Akeem Hicks couldn't even stay on the field for 5 games. All these veterans that the Bears parted ways with, there was a reason why it happened. For Robert Quinn, there was no reason. There was no reason to cut the tie. And now we're seeing the reason. See, now we're seeing it happen. I think this is why the timing of this seems weird to some, but it's understandable. Ryan Poles already made his mark on this team, and the expectation probably was, well, hey, Robert Quinn's coming off 18.5 sacks. He'll probably replicate that somewhat. Maybe he'll get 10. We'll keep him around. Good veteran. But now, as we're seeing, he is having some painfully low production. It's looking like crap, actually. So the Bears smartly are looking for a trade partner. Now, in retrospect, I'm sure Poles had gotten it all back. He would have traded Quinn in the offseason, gotten more back for him, coming off an 18.5 sack season. I mean, his value is going to be less, right? His value is going to be less because he's struggling. But I would say at this point, trade him, get him out of here, and complete the rebuild defensively. That's my suggestion. Complete the rebuild defensively. You've done it with almost everybody, Mack and Hicks. Do it with Quinn and get it out of the way. Get it done. It shouldn't be a big deal. There shouldn't be a problem. There shouldn't be as sentimental as maybe Khalil Mack. The Bears signed him. Ryan Pace signed him, paid him a lot of money, and he produced for 1 year, did amazing, and then sucked. And keep in mind, he sucked year 1, too. Only had 2 sacks. We remember the Robert Quinn saga of not rushing the quarterback, getting manhandled defensively, whether or not he was injured. I mean, it doesn't matter. He shouldn't have played then. The fact is, first year sucked, and this year sucked. He had 1 good year and 3. That's fine. Time to get rid of him. I'm really okay with this report and this move. And I think it just further cements what Ryan Poles is trying to do with the Bears. And it further etches his name into Bears lore, into his era, if you will. Really. This is Ryan Poles football at this point. And Ryan Poles football right now consists of getting rid of bloated, stupid contracts given up by Ryan Pace, getting rid of these veterans who are going to be owed tons of money and are not producing, making the team a little bit younger, and saving cap space for 2023. That's the plan, and right now he's sticking with it, to his credit. We don't know if it's going to work. We're hopeful it will, but we don't know. But he's sticking with his guns. I appreciate that from Poles. There are a lot of other problems with him and what he's done to this roster for this year, mainly involving Justin Fields, but overall, financially, he's made some smart, shrewd moves. We've said that all year. This would be another smart and shrewd move, and it would be on brand with Ryan Poles. They shouldn't be as big a deal as people want to say it. Oh, the Bears are getting rid of Robert Quinn. Well, what's he doing? What's he done this year to justify the Bears keeping him or paying him even more? I'm waiting. Very, very little this year that he's done to justify him staying. I feel like there isn't as much controversy around this move, not like Khalil Mack. I think everybody's pretty on board with this. Nevertheless, I'm sure some will not be. I'm sure some will say this is ruining the team. And to those I say, you're wrong here. By the way, this is coming from somebody who is not a Kool-Aid drinker, who actually is an analyst before a fan. This is probably the best move the Bears can make right now with Quinn. Really. Best move they can make. You get rid of Quinn, you get something in return. You have to pay some of his salary, but he's not producing. You get rid of the bloated contract, you get rid of the veteran, and you continue on brand. Look, if you want people to buy into you, you have to stay on brand. If you want somebody to buy into your plan, you have to be consistent, right? You have to be consistent. You can't flip-flop. You have to be on par with your vision and what you're trying to do. Ryan Poles, for better or for worse, has a vision, and he's trying to execute as best as he could. We don't know if it's going to be right or wrong. Time will tell. But I'll tell you this much. No aging veterans for next year and a lot of cap space moving forward. Maybe it's going to work. But I appreciate him still being on brand. I appreciate him sticking to a plan, not flip-flopping, not going out and being crazy, being overly aggressive. He's sticking with his guns. Something Ryan Pace sure as hell couldn't do. Something other Bears GMs in the past could not do. Bill Embry, another. It didn't work that way. That's a fact. Again, the quote from Jason La Canfora, quote, "The Bears are in a mess again, and they're in a rebuild even if they don't want to admit it." Although pawning off Khalil Mack should have been evidence enough now after the Bears told teams throughout the offseason that they didn't want to part ways with Robert Quinn, I'm being told that Quinn is indeed being shopped around with the trade deadline a few weeks away. Quote from a GM, "Want to move him, but they're going to have to eat some of that contract to do it." And according to Brad Spielberger, Quinn will be owed about $7.1 million at the deadline. So there you have it. Ryan Poles stays on brand. He gets rid of an aging superstar, past tense, who cannot perform, who has 1 sack, who has 7 or 8 tackles, who's just doing nothing this year. You could get rid of him before the deadline, eat up some of the salary, and move on. This, I think, is the last big veteran that the Bears have to part ways with. Khalil Mack gone, Akeem Hicks gone, Robert Quinn may end up being gone. To those who don't appreciate it, to those who think it's a backwards move, I say this is completely the opposite. Robert Quinn's old, and he will never replicate 18.5 sacks in the season. I think the Bears thought he could, and that's why they kept him, and now they're realizing, nope, bad idea, trade him. Fine by me. Ryan Poles is sticking to his plan. He's going to try and do everything he can to make it work out and come true. And as for Quinn, really, no one wants to hear this, but truly, he had 1 good year. Bears signed him for 3 years, paid him a lot of money, had 1 good year. First year, sucked, and everybody was all over him. I was, everybody was. Last year, everybody was quiet, did great. This year, sucked again. So there's no need to sit around with some aging superstar who can't do anything defensively. Might as well trade him, eat up some of the salary, and get rid of the final big veteran on your defense. You've already done a couple in the offseason. Do another one here and move on for good. This is the last gigantic Ryan Pace contract. Move on from it. And I appreciate Poles somewhat sticking to his plan here. Don't know if it's going to work, but I appreciate it. It's not worth keeping Quinn. It's not. I'm not going to sit here and defend or stick out my neck for him. I mean, he's done nothing this year. He's making money. Somebody might want him, and you trade him and move on. Because it's either you trade him now or you're going to release him in the offseason. You'll get nothing back for him, and that'll be it, right? So there's really no winning here. At this point, I would just grab my losses from the former GM and move forward. Pretty simple. And I think the Bears are going to do that here. I think Ryan Poles will do that. And I think this is just another small positive step in the right direction for them. 2023 is going to be the year, at least for spending. And although I have a lot of critiques of Ryan Poles, mainly no offensive line help, no help for Justin Fields, I will say this move is a forward-thinking move. This move is the right move for the Bears. Thanks for watching today's show here at VPod TV, channel 59.3 in Roku. Really appreciate the time. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Jon Z Sports, Facebook, Jon Zaghloul. Want to watch more of this show? Head on over to sportstalkchicago.com. So long, everyone.